Thank you. My name is Karen. I am an addict, and I am from Amsterdam. It's thank you for asking me to share my experience, strength, and hope. To share my story. It is an honor and a privilege, and I've never shared this early in the morning. I must say, for you guys, it's late at night. For me, it's early in the morning. And yesterday, I was speaking to one of my best buddies in recovery, and when we're talking about being asked to share, what a privilege and what an honor it is. And I remember the first time I was asked, and it was by accident. I was at the area convention in Salt Lake City in Utah, and one of the speakers, Deborah, couldn't make it because there was a lot of wind. She couldn't come. And I was asked to share from the podium. This was my first time at 18 months of sobriety. And I remember connecting with my sponsor, and it was like, oh, I've been asked to share from the podium, with his high voice. And the only thing she said to me is, turn it into excitement. So here I am, pretty excited early in the morning to come and sit with you guys. There's one thing of the big book that I would like to read, which is, it's part of my story, but it's also, for us today, and it's slightly paraphrased. Fundamentally, though, the difference between an electronic meeting and the home group around the corner is only one of format. In any meeting, anywhere, CAs share experience, strength, and hope with each other in order to stay sober and help other addicts. Modem to modem, it still says here, or face to face, CAs speak the language of the heart in all its power and simplicity. I love that. It's a language of the heart, and maybe you can hear it in my voice. I am pretty nervous and excited to be here. And the feeling when I get in a face-to-face meeting is where I can feel the energy. And it's a bit weird right now because I can see you guys, and I'm trying to feel what it is to be with you guys. I wasn't born in Amsterdam. I was born in The Hague, which is a different city in the Netherlands, in Holland. It's an hour's drive from Amsterdam. And my father is from Indonesia, and my mother is from the UK. And I was born in the Netherlands. So there is, I never felt connected. That's how the feeling I still have from back in the days is I don't feel connected. I look like my father, but I definitely do not, look like my mother. There's no resemblance in, what we both look like. And my brother and I don't even look alike. He's fair-haired and blonde. Obviously, I'm not. And so there was a disconnection from early age. And although my mother is my mother and my father is my father, I still didn't feel, I always thought I was adopted, and I was not. It seems I'm not. Just going through school, I flunked school several times, had to leave school, the whole yada yada. And the thing with, I didn't start with drugs. I started with booze. I started drinking at a party of a friend's house, and for me, what I remember is, we were allowed to stay there. We were allowed to spend the night there. And I remember waking up the next morning and only remembering that I had puked all over the coats that were on the bed. That was my first memory of like, wow. And the second thought is, when can I do this again? When do I get to do this again? Which is kind of weird. I've just puked and everything is like, when can I do this again? To go a bit forward, booze is not my thing. Speed is, though. I love speed. I like to go up. That's my thing. I like to go up, 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 up. And at the age of 20, no, that's not true. At the age of 20, at the age of 18, I started working. At the age of 20, there was a group of people in my hometown where I spent, some time with, and I got introduced to cocaine. I got introduced to ecstasy. I got introduced to men. Got introduced to prostitutes. All those things together made it for me the high life, the life that I've always wanted, life in the fast lane. Here I am 20 years old and I'm driving a Jaguar. That's what I want. That's what I really wanted. I belong somewhere. And, the drug use became worse and worse and worse. And at the age of 25, I thought, I'm going to move to Amsterdam. That might be a good idea. I will leave this group of people and go to Amsterdam. And, had no clue about addiction, had no clue about a solution. And I love what one of the readings says in Cocaine Anonymous. We try changing jobs, cities, apartments, and lovers. I did all that. Moved to Amsterdam thinking, not any drugs in Amsterdam, right? Wrong. Where that's my thinking in those days. So I moved to Amsterdam, and guess what? I think it took me 24 hours to find the man, to find the drugs, and to have the sex. That's how it works for me. It's a sort of try come together. Simple, right? It's back in the days, right? And finally, what I sort of ended up with, it sounds horrible when I say that, but I married the guy that I met in Amsterdam, and he just lived in this huge mansion, had loads of money, and did loads of drugs. That's what I wanted. And the drug use became worse and worse and worse, and where he could stop, I could not. That's my first inkling, basically, where the friends around me, the girlfriends around me, because by now I'm 27. People get married, people have kids, people have more kids, etc. And they were able to stop, and I wasn't able to stop. And so what I did, what I thought was a solution, is I got pregnant. And because my mind told me, if I'm pregnant, I will stop using. With the first one, I literally stopped for 24 hours and I got back to using. And I couldn't understand it. How can it be that I'm carrying a little one inside me and I'm using? And so giving birth to the first one, and I was basically pregnant very quickly with the second one. And, my mind again told me, if I have 2 kids, I'll stop using, right? And the answer is wrong. I couldn't stop using. And so my using progressed, and I did the same for a 3rd time. It's pretty insane, right? That's what I believe anyway, looking back at it now. Back then, I thought it was a brilliant solution. 3 kids and I'll stop using. Progressive illness. And the using became worse and worse and worse, and even with the pregnancy. And I got, not only doing cocaine, but also drinking more and more and more. And I remember one day, and this is just one of the horror stories, but for me it's good to, good, I wouldn't say good, it's necessary to realize at times the things I've done. At one point in late at night, I couldn't fall asleep because of the cocaine, the high. And I needed to come down. And there was a bottle of Genever. I really dislike the taste of Genever. That's gin. I really dislike it. And here I am, 8 months pregnant, with the bottle at my mouth, drinking something I do not like. Talk about powerlessness. Those are the things I need to remind myself. It's the things I did, even pregnant, whilst being pregnant. Baby number 3 comes, and I'm still using. And after 2 years of my youngest one, I decide to look for, not necessarily help, but to look for something. So I go on my computer and I type in the word cocaine in the search engine. And for me, it is what I remember, and I say that specifically, what I remember, is my sobriety date is February 28, 2004, is my brain is on fire. When I use cocaine, it just feels like my whole brain is on fire. And so I typed in the word cocaine, hoping to find some message where it would be explained to me that why my brain is on fire, when I use cocaine. And, amazingly enough, I was linked through to Cocaine Anonymous. And there were the online meetings of CA, so I read the whole website of Cocaine Anonymous, and I did the self-test, and I think to every question except one, I think there is a question where it says, have you gone to jail? And the answer was no. That was the only one, and the rest I could say yes. Have I ever used more drugs than I wanted? The whole thing that we have in the self-test. And then it says underneath it, if you've answered yes to one or more of these questions, you might have a problem. And I'm so grateful it doesn't say you have a problem, you do have a problem, it just says you might have a problem. And that got me kind of curious to what Cocaine Anonymous is. And I subscribed to the online meetings of CA, and even today, it's an email-based meeting. Back then, we didn't have any VoIP meetings or Skype meetings or video chat meetings. It was just the online meetings. And I subscribed to one of the online meetings because we had 6 in those days. And I typed, I'm 37 years old. I have 3 kids, and I can't stop doing cocaine. And the welcome I received, even through that medium of sitting behind my computer and feeling the love of the emails that were returned, was overwhelming for me. It's like, wow, people shared their experience, people shared their experience strength, people shared their experience strength and hope with me. And one of the things, several questions were asked. I was asked several questions, is how free do you want to be? And all those things for me helped me in order to sort of get excited, to get enthusiastic about CA, about what other people had, because they had, the non-using, and I was still using, and I found that really attractive. But how do I stop? How do I stay stopped? How do I, how? And it was suggested to me that I get to a meeting, a face-to-face meeting, and we had one meeting at the time in the Netherlands, one meeting in Holland, and it was in The Hague, my hometown. So here I go on a Friday evening, I drive to my hometown and I go to a meeting of Cocaine Anonymous, my first ever meeting. And I received my big book, the same big book where I read just the part of about the language of the heart, the modem to modem and the home group. And there was a guy who picked up his 2-year chip. And that just blew me away. I couldn't stay sober for 2 weeks, for 2 days, for 2 hours, for 2 minutes. So 2 years for me was like, wow, man, how'd you do that? And it was, it was a small meeting. I think there were 8 of us. But I can so go back to the feeling of that particular meeting. And I can even get emotional. Because the solution was handed to me. If you want what we have, you got to do what we do. And it sounds so simple, right? And I still struggled for a good 14 months, walking in and out, using some more, in and out. And I just kept coming back. I do get the importance of that phrase, keep coming back. And I kept coming back. There was something in Cocaine Anonymous which I found really attractive. There was nothing attractive about the using anymore. I just couldn't, couldn't surrender with 2 hands. The powerlessness that we talk about in step 1 was like, me, powerless? No way, I'm not powerless. My experience, my track record showed that I couldn't stop using when I wanted to, when I was pregnant, all those things. And You know, finally, there is an evening, a night, a morning, by the way, where I surrendered, you know, and with two hands. And surrender for me just basically means do what is suggested. And I did. You know, finally I was, you know, able to get to more meetings because I did half, you know, half measures availed me nothing, really. And the amazing change for me came is I went to the UK. So my friend Kelly from Salt Lake City is asked me if I wanted to join her at the UK convention. It's the CA UK 12, and it was still in Bournemouth then. And so here I go with 30 days of sobriety to a convention. I had no clue what a convention was, by the way, no clue. And had an 8 hours delay, and there was not one single moment where I thought I'm going to go back, which is unusual for me because if anything stops me in my tracks, it's like, man, I'm out of here. And 8 hour delay, and I walk into this convention, and I mean, literally, the place is buzzing. It's like there's this buzz, and I walk in there, and you know, the place is filled up. It's a small hotel, and people were laughing, people were having fun. The speakers that weekend, everything for me just fitted in what I wanted. There was Earl H, there was Leon S, you know, doing their shares, and I heard some amazing things, and I could so relate to what they were sharing, and I could. All I had from that convention was like, what you guys have is what I want. You know, I don't laugh when I use. I don't have fun anymore when I use. You know, I had that in the early days. But when it became a necessity, you know, not a luxury, it became a necessity to use. There's no joy. There's nothing of that whatsoever. And soon after that convention, I went to the LA convention, to the World Convention, 2004, man, and I was blown away one more time. And I love going to conventions. Why? It's because, you know, that for me is where I get to make friends from different areas, from different parts of the world. It's where I hear the message of Cocaine Anonymous. It's where I get to see the joy. It's where I, you know, make friends, really have friendships. I'm 13 years sober today, not today, but this year. And, you know, have friends who have been with me the whole journey that I've been in recovery, in sobriety. And I find that pretty amazing. And those friendships are not based on self. I want you, I want me, I want drugs, and I want you. You know, it's based on real friendships. It's based on sharing. It's based on sharing our emotions, our feelings, our journeys. And as I always say, you know, shit happens in life, and it does. And I've just returned from another convention. I've just, you know, the last weekend from the Swedish convention, and I still go to conventions. Why? Because I love them. Because why? We're here for the newcomer, for the new, you know, girl, man, boy, woman who walks through the doors and says, hi, my name is, and I can't stop using. You know, so we get to be here. And, you know, my journey in recovery has been at, when I was 2 years sober, I divorced. I divorced the father of my children. And why? Because he was still using, you know, he still is today. And I don't want that for my recovery. I do not want to be, and maybe it's even that I cannot be with someone who's using Marasalon whilst I am in recovery. So I divorced him, and it meant that I had to leave, you know, a lot of things behind. And what we did, one of the things is we always placed our kids in front of ourselves. So even with the divorce, you know, our kids have been number one. I mean, my recovery is number one, but my kids have been number one when it comes to the divorce. And you know, my husband, my ex-husband, is truly a good man. I mean, even while he's using, he still has some principles. Contrary to me, when I use the principles, I'll go overboard. And so I've managed to sort of, you know, get out of that pretty okay in the sense that, you know, I took my kids with me, had to find another home, had to find a job, started working, and finding a house, a job, not a job, finding a house in Amsterdam is pretty horrendous because we have more citizens than we have houses. But anyway, you know, the trust, the faith that I have in the God of my understanding by working this program, by working with a sponsor, by staying connected to so many friends, to so many people in recovery, whilst I kept asking, how did you do this? What happened to you? Can you please share your experience? And, you know, most members will just say, keep trudging, keep walking, keep doing this deal, and amazing things happen. And that's what I did, you know, just keep walking, one foot in front of the other, you know, one day at a time, how we do it. And, you know, I've had a journey where I went to several houses in Amsterdam, and I'm back in my old house, which is funnily enough, and it's my house. Do you know what I mean? It's where I belong. And the relationship that I have with my kids had to be rebuilt, because my oldest one was 10 years when I finally got into recovery. So 10 years of using, 10 years of no connecting, 10 years of basically standing in the way of my using. And so I had to rebuild that relationship. And today it's a pretty unique relationship, in the sense that I think a year ago, 18 months ago, she came to me and she had you know, a life-changing moment, in the sense that you know, she told me she was gay, and I was the first one she told. And that's the relationship that I get to have with her. See, I go again because I find it emotional, because there was no connection, you know, in those early days with my kids. When I use, there's no emotional connection. It's not there, because using is way more important than the relationships that I have, the emotional relationships that I have. And my second one is a boy, and he's 21 right now. He's gone through a tough period, and you know, he's like me. I'm like him, and he's me. So we're the same. And you know, he flunked school several times, and he had to go to various schools. Used loads of drugs, so that was difficult. And again, I went to you know, several members with kids, because they can share their experience. And they just said to me, you know, keep walking, keep doing this deal, and things will work out. And you know, amazingly, things have worked out. He's now 21. He lives with me in upstairs, and we have an amazing relationship. You know, he is very sensitive, like most of us, and I like that. You know, the big book refers to us to, we are sensitive people, you know, because we are. And whether he's one of us, that's for him to decide. Again, he's like me. And the youngest one, who's now 17 and he still lives with me, he was diagnosed a year ago with, he's in the autism spectrum. And I've always said, you know, there's something up with him. I'm not necessarily saying there's something wrong with him, but he's different. He's different than my two other kids, and he's different than, you know, most other kids that I saw at school. And they've always said, you know, no, nothing up with him, nothing wrong with him. He's just a quiet boy. Guess what? He's quiet because there, you know, there's something up with him. And he had to leave school, and he had to leave school last year. And why am I sharing this? Because for me it's important to suit up and show up, especially for my children. It's important to suit up and show up in my work. It's important to suit up and show up in the fellowship. That one is important for me, to keep doing what I've been doing. And so I get to be here for my kids. I get to be here for others. I also know that I have to take care of me. You know, I have to take care of me in order to be there for others. And so why do I keep trudging this journey? Because it still gives me so much of what I want and what I need. And the thing I said about excitement, you know, I still get excited about everything I do, I get to do in life today. I have a job that I absolutely love. And since I've started working after my divorce, because I've worked before that, but with 3 children and the using, you know, I stopped working. I've never been sick one day in my life, you know, at my previous job and at my current job. And you know, at several jobs where I was using, I was asked to leave. Please leave. Do not come back anymore, Karen. And here I'm asked to stay. I find that pretty amazing. You know, I've been asked to stay. And I have no clue how long I've been sharing, Eric. Whatever, no, I'm not done. Do I need to be done? Okay, thank you. No, again, I still get excited about recovery. I get, not always, you know, the fire needs to be lit at times. It definitely does. It needs to be lit at times, and that's what I get at conventions. That's what I get with connecting with you guys. And, you know, the layer of working the steps, you know, one more time and going deeper and listening to what others are going through, is always for me where I go a bit deeper, if that makes any sense. The sense in going deeper in relationships, the sense in going deeper is to what, you know, spirituality is. The spirituality for me is just basically doing God's will. It's like, and it's difficult. There's a sentence in the big book where it talks about, and I'm not very good at doing it by head, but it says something like, you know, either we go on till we are dead, or we find a spiritual path. That's a different. That's a horrible, difficult choice, right? Like, and what do we do? Keep on using or go into a spiritual path. Today, it doesn't seem that difficult. But when I was at that point, you know, where it's like in either I'll go on until, you know, I die, and not realizing that I was already spiritually dead, it was just not physical dead. And today I'm alive. That's how it feels. You know, I'm alive on the inside. And so I stay connected to people who are in recovery. I stay connected on a deeper level of people who have long-term sobriety, long-term recovery, and I get to be there for the newcomer who walks in the door. And you know, another part of my story, and sometimes it feels like I'm boasting, but I try not to. You know, self-seeking has not always slipped away. It's not slipped away. Is part of my story is that I've started meetings in Amsterdam. And why? Because, you know, my story, what I just shared, there was one meeting in the whole of the Netherlands when I came and found the solution, and there were no meetings in Amsterdam. And my sponsor, who lives in Chicago, has started a meeting, a lunchtime meeting in Chicago. And what I did, especially in early recovery, I just copied what you did. I just copied what others did, you know, the good behavior, not necessarily the bad behavior, the good behavior. So I copied what my sponsor did. Started a lunchtime meeting, not one, but two. Sorry, my phone is always going. And started 2 meetings in Amsterdam. And the first one was a Thursday lunchtime meeting. Why lunchtime? Because my kids were at school. So while they were at school, I could go to a meeting of Cocaine Anonymous because that's my home. That's the fellowship that I crave. And, you know, not only a Thursday meeting, but also a Tuesday meeting. And my personal goal was to have 7 meetings a week, you know, so I started 7 meetings a week. And some of them are still here, some of them died. And you know, the principles that I've learned in recovery, to practice these principles in all my affairs, is what I take out to the world, take out into my job, into my family, into friends. And again, one of those principles for me is suit up, show up. Just do it. Go for it. And I'm just thinking, because I just started another meeting a few weeks ago on a Thursday evening, because the Thursday evening moved to outside Amsterdam, so there was no meeting in Amsterdam on Thursday. And again, it's the excitement that I have for recovery. And it's the rule number 62 meeting. Don't take yourself too damn seriously, because I can take myself very serious at times. But I need to remember that I take my recovery serious, but I don't take myself too damn seriously. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.